The alien ship floated dead in space like a broken toy. Captain Felix looked at his control panel with all four of his shaking hands. Nothing worked anymore. The engines were completely dead, and his small research ship was stuck in the middle of nowhere. His crew was scared. They were far from home, and their ship was dying. Felix knew he had to do something fast, or they would all die out here in the cold darkness of space. With trembling fingers, he pressed the red emergency button that would send out a distress call to anyone who might be listening. The distress signal shot out into space like a cry for help. It was the same signal that aliens across the galaxy had been using for thousands of years. Someone received this signal, they were supposed to help. It was the most important rule in space. Never ignore a distress call. Science Officer Thane floated over to his captain. His see-through skin was almost white with fear. "Captain, we have a big problem," he whispered. "Look at our star maps. We're right next to a restricted area." Felix looked at the glowing map on his screen.
Yeah.
His heart sank when he saw where they were. The red warning signs were everywhere. This whole area of space was marked as extremely dangerous, a Class 12 environmental hazard. That was the worst rating possible. A Deathworld system, Thane continued, his voice shaking. "The maps say nothing can live there. The planets are too dangerous, too hot, too cold, too poisonous. No civilized species could survive in a place like that." Felix's long antennae twitched with worry. He had heard stories about Deathworld's planets, so harsh and violent that only the most primitive creatures could exist there. Surely no intelligent life could develop on such terrible worlds. And even if something did live there, it would probably be too savage and dangerous to help them. The distress signal traveled through space at the speed of light, moving past dead planets and empty space. It flew for hours until it reached a small monitoring station hidden in an asteroid field. The station was watching this area of space very carefully. And when the alien signal arrived, alarms started ringing. Commander Ginwoo Park was drinking coffee when the emergency alert came through. He was a tall, serious man who had been watching the borders of human space for many years. He quickly looked at his screens and saw the alien transmission. His face became worried as he read the details. "This is not good," he said to himself. These alien beings had crossed into human territory without asking permission. It violated the boundaries that humans had set up to protect their space. This was exactly the kind of situation that could cause big problems. Commander Park called his communications officer over. "Send a message to Admiral Borum right now," he ordered. "Tell her we have a first contact situation. Unknown aliens have entered our space and are sending distress signals." He looked at the alien ship's position on his screen. It was small and helpless, clearly in serious trouble. But Park had to follow the rules. Any contact with alien species had to be handled very carefully. "Prepare the rescue fleet," Park continued. "Full battle readiness. We don't know what we're dealing with here, so we need to be ready for anything." The rescue fleet began to move. Admiral Lee Borum walked across the bridge of her massive warship with confident steps. Her face showed the scars and lines of someone who had fought in space battles for over 20 years. She was tough, experienced, and never took chances when it came to protecting her crew. The ship she commanded was called the Retribution. The bridge alone was bigger than most alien ships. Through the giant windows, she could see 11 other warships floating in formation around her. Each one was a heavy cruiser, built for war and loaded with enough weapons to destroy entire cities. "Listen up, everyone," Admiral Borum announced to her crew. Her voice was calm, but serious. "We have a rescue mission ahead of us. I know it might seem like we're bringing too much firepower for a simple rescue, but that's exactly how we stay alive out here." The crew nodded. They'd all been through situations like this before. When humans ventured into unknown space, they always came prepared for the worst possible scenario. It was better to have too much protection than not enough. Lieutenant Commander Minho was busy in the cargo bay making sure everything was ready. He watched as teams of soldiers loaded medical equipment, emergency supplies, and rescue gear onto smaller ships. There were doctors, engineers, and specialists ready for any kind of emergency they might find. "Double-check the medical scanners," Minho ordered his team. "We don't know what kind of biology these aliens have. Make sure we have equipment that can handle different atmospheric requirements. To the human crew, this was just another day at work. They had rescued ships before, and they knew that space was full of dangers. Pirates, hostile aliens, dangerous radiation, unstable stars, there were 1,000 things that could go wrong. That's why they always brought overwhelming force to any rescue operation, but far away. On the dying alien research ship, Captain Vilix was watching his sensor screens with growing terror. The readings he was seeing made no sense. The approaching ships were massive beyond anything he had ever encountered. Each one was bigger than his entire home space station. "Captain," Science Officer Thane called out, his voice shaking with fear. "The energy signatures are incredible. Each of those ships is carrying enough weapons to destroy our entire homeworld." Vilix stared at the numbers on his screen. His 4 hands trembled as he tried to understand what he was seeing. The power. Readings were off the charts. These weren't rescue ships. They were instruments of destruction. "Look at their formation," another crew member whispered. "They're surrounding us like predators. This is a hunting pattern." The alien crew huddled together in their small ship, watching as the human fleet got closer. To them, it looked like a group of massive predators moving in for the kill. They had sent out a distress call, hoping for help, but instead, they had attracted the attention of the most dangerous force they had ever encountered. "They're not here to rescue us," Captain Vilix whispered to his crew, his voice barely audible. "They're here to eliminate witnesses. We've seen too much. We know they exist now." The human fleet continued its approach, completely unaware that their standard rescue protocol was being interpreted as an act of war by the terrified aliens they were coming to save. The alien crew pressed themselves against the walls of their small ship, their crystal-like bodies shaking with pure terror. They looked like living glass sculptures, beautiful, but incredibly fragile. Every time the human ships got closer, they trembled even more. Captain Vilix's 4 hands moved frantically across his control panel, sending out message after message. He was using every diplomatic language he knew, trying to apologize for whatever mistake had brought this massive war fleet to their location. "Great warriors of the void," he transmitted in the old formal language. "We are simple researchers. We have violated no laws knowingly. Please spare our humble vessel." He tried another language, then another. The Galactic database had thousands of different ways to say sorry, and Vilix was using every single one. His crew watched him with desperate hope, praying that somehow their captain could talk their way out of this nightmare. "We meant no harm to your domain," Vilix broadcast over and over again. "We are peaceful explorers. We did not know this was your territory. Please forgive our intrusion." On the bridge of the Retribution, Communications Officer Hai-Jin sat at her station with a confused expression. Her job was to translate alien languages, but these messages were strange. The computer was having trouble making sense of what the aliens were trying to say. "Admiral," she called out, turning to face Biorum. "These aliens keep sending us apology messages, saying sorry for something, but I can't figure out what they think they did wrong." Admiral Borum walked over to look at the translation screen. The words kept changing as the computer tried to figure out the alien language. "Keep working on it," she told Hai-Jin. "Maybe they're confused about something." She looked at the sensor. Readings from the alien ship. The life signs were getting weaker by the minute. Whatever was wrong with their ship, it was getting worse fast. "They're definitely in trouble," she said to her crew. "Continue the rescue approach. Standard formation." The human warships moved into their practiced rescue pattern. They formed a protective circle around the small alien vessel. They're massive, holes blocking any potential threats from reaching the damaged ship. To the humans, this was like putting a protective barrier around someone who was hurt. But to the Zephyrians watching from inside their ship, it looked like something completely different. The huge human ships looked like giant space predators. Surrounding a small prey animal, they were trapped, with no way to escape. "They're boxing us in," whispered Science Officer Thane, his translucent skin now completely white with fear. "Look at their formation. They're making sure we can't run away." Dr. So-Young sat in her laboratory aboard the Retribution, studying the readings from the alien ship. Was the fleet's expert on alien biology, and what she was seeing fascinated her. these creatures were completely different from humans. "Admiral," she reported over the communication system, "their bone density is incredibly low. They must have evolved on a planet with very light gravity.
I'll bet you.
They're also showing signs of extreme stress." She looked closer at her instruments. "Their heart rates are through the roof. They're more scared than I've ever seen any creature be." The human fleet continued to move closer, following their standard rescue procedures. They had no idea that every move they made was being interpreted as an act of aggression by the terrified aliens they were trying to save. The massive doors of the Retribution's docking bay slowly opened with a deep mechanical rumble. Bright lights flooded the space as the damaged alien ship was carefully pulled inside by magnetic tractor beams. The human crew had prepared everything perfectly for this moment. Medical teams, repair equipment, and security personnel all stood ready, along the corridors leading to the docking bay. Human Marines stood at attention in their full combat gear. Their armor was thick and black, designed to protect them from explosions, radiation, and enemy weapons. Each soldier carried a pulse rifle and wore a helmet that completely covered their face. To the humans, this was completely normal whenever they encountered unknown aliens. They always prepared for the possibility of danger. Captain Felix stepped out of his ship on shaking legs. His crystal-like body was barely 3 feet tall, and when he saw the human soldiers, he thought he was looking at mechanical giants. Each Marine was at least 6 feet tall, making them seem like towering monsters to the tiny alien. The armor made terrible sounds as the humans moved, metal clanking, electronic beeping, and the hiss of hydraulic systems. To Felix, it sounded like the breathing of enormous predators. He couldn't see their faces behind the dark visors, which made them seem even more frightening. "Please," Felix whispered, his voice barely working through the translation device. "We have done nothing wrong. We are just researchers. We meant no harm." He fell to his knees, all 4 arms raised in surrender. His crew members behind him were too scared to even move. They had never seen anything so terrifying in their entire lives. Marine Sergeant Taman noticed how scared the aliens were. Had been a soldier for 15 years, and he could recognize fear when he saw it. Slowly, he reached up and removed his helmet, revealing a kind human face with concerned eyes. "Sir, we're here to help," Taman said gently. "Are you injured? Do you need medical attention?" The alien captain stared at the human face in confusion. This creature looked nothing like the mechanical monster he had imagined. Taman had dark hair, worried eyes, and was speaking in a calm, friendly voice. Dr. So-young pushed through the group of Marines, carrying her medical scanner. She was a small woman, much less intimidating than the soldiers. She immediately saw how terrified the aliens were and understood what was happening. "Everyone step back," she ordered the Marines. "You're scaring them? They think we're here too? Hurt them." The Marines moved away, giving the aliens more space. Dr. So-young knelt down to be at the same level as Captain Felix. She spoke slowly and carefully, using simple words that the translator could handle easily. "We received your distress signal," she explained. "We came to rescue you. Your ship is broken, and we want to fix it." She showed him her medical scanner, a small device that glowed with soft blue light. "This tells me if you're hurt. It won't harm you." Slowly, the Zephyrians began to understand. These weren't conquerors or warriors, they were rescuers. The human medical team started checking the aliens for injuries. While engineers began examining their damaged ship, the Marines put away their weapons and removed their helmets, showing friendly human faces. They helped carry supplies and made sure the aliens felt safe. Captain Felix watched in amazement. As the humans worked quickly and efficiently to save his crew and repair his ship, they were still frightening with their size and strength, but their actions showed they truly wanted to help. The medical bay of the Retribution was filled with soft blue light as Dr. So-young carefully examined the alien crew members. She moved slowly and gently, knowing that these creatures were incredibly fragile compared to humans. Their bodies were like living crystal, beautiful but delicate enough to break if handled roughly, as she worked. Dr. So-young made fascinating discoveries about their biology. The Zephyrians had hollow bones, similar to birds on Earth, but even lighter. Their muscles were designed for grace and precision, not strength. Everything about them showed they had evolved in a world without danger. Your people, she said too. Captain Felix, as she checked his vital signs, you've never had to fight for survival, have you? Captain Felix shook his head. Our world is peaceful. We have no large predators, no natural disasters. Our biggest concern is usually bad weather that might delay our research projects. The conversation was becoming easier as the translation system learned more about their language. Captain Felix found himself growing curious about these strange, powerful beings who had saved his crew. Your world, he asked Dr. So-young. The star charts call it a death world. Is this truly where your species comes from? Before Dr. So-young could answer, Lieutenant Jae-soon walked into the medical bay carrying repair equipment. He was a young engineer who had been working on fixing the alien ship's engines. He overheard the question and laughed. Earth. It's pretty rough, Jae-soon said casually, as if he was talking about the weather. The gravity is about 1.8 times heavier than what you're used to. That means everything weighs almost twice as much. Captain Felix's eyes grew wide with shock. You live in gravity that strong? How do you even move? You get used to it, Jae-sung shrugged. But that's just the beginning. We also have hurricanes. Giant storms with winds that can destroy entire cities, and earthquakes that can crack the ground open and swallow buildings. The alien captain's crystalline body began to tremble. And you survived all of this? Well, we also have predators, Jae-sung continued, not realizing how horrifying this sounded to the peaceful alien. Big cats that hunt alone, wolves that work in packs, sharks in the oceans. Even some of our plants are dangerous. They can poison you or trap you. Captain Felix looked like he might faint. And you evolved there naturally? You weren't placed there by some cruel experiment? Had to adapt or die? Jae-sung said simply. That's just how evolution works. The weak don't survive, so only the strong pass on their genes. Dr. So-young saw how distressed the alien captain was becoming. That's why our ships are built like this, she explained gently. Space can be just as dangerous as our home planet. We've learned to be prepared for anything. Your rescue mission, Captain Felix whispered. You brought 12 warships to save one small research vessel. Standard protocol, Jae-sung nodded. We never know what we might find out there. Better to have too much protection than not enough. The conversation continued. Captain Felix began to understand something incredible. These humans weren't warriors or conquerors. They were survivors. Everything they did was shaped by their need to stay alive in a universe full of dangers. Later that day, Captain Felix sat in his repaired communication room, trying to figure out how to explain this to the Galactic Council. He had to tell them that a species from a Class 12 death world had achieved spaceflight. These humans were so dangerous that their idea of a simple rescue mission involved enough firepower to conquer entire star systems. The galaxy was about to change forever. The emergency alarm echoed through the massive crystal building that housed the Galactic Council. Within hours of receiving Captain Felix's terrifying report, representatives from dozens of different alien species were rushing to their seats in the great amphitheater. The building itself was a marvel of engineering, made from pure crystal, that amplified sound and light throughout the chamber. Council Prime Zenth stood at the center podium, his tall, blue-skinned form commanding attention from every corner of the room. He was one of the oldest and most respected leaders in the galaxy, and his voice carried the weight of centuries of wisdom. Fellow beings of the galaxy, he announced, his voice booming through the crystal walls. We face a crisis unlike any we have encountered before. Species from a Class 12 death world has achieved spaceflight. Gasps and frightened whispers filled the chamber. Class 12 death world was the most dangerous rating possible. Most council members had never even heard of a civilization surviving on such a hostile planet. According to the report from Captain Felix Zenth continued, these beings approached his distress call with 12 massive warships. Their weapons are unlike anything in our databases. Each ship carries enough firepower to destroy entire planets. Counselor Rafe of the Harmony Collective stood up, his tentacles shaking with fear. His species was known for their peaceful nature and dedication to resolving conflicts through discussion rather than violence. Council Prime, Rafe said, his voice trembling. No civilized species would bring such overwhelming force to a simple rescue operation. This can only mean one thing. They are conquerors. They were testing our defenses, seeing how we would respond to their presence. Other council members nodded in agreement. Counselor Vextal, whose species had large compound eyes, spoke up next. The pattern is clear. They rescue one of our ships, learn about our technology and capabilities, then prepare for invasion. This is classic military strategy. We must act quickly, announced Counselor Thren, whose rocky, mountainous form made him look like a walking boulder. If we wait, they will have time to study our weaknesses and prepare a full assault on our worlds. The Council quickly voted to send a containment fleet to human space. 200 ships from various species would surround the human vessels and demand their surrender. It was the largest military action the Galactic Council had ever taken. Meanwhile, in human space, Admiral Borum was receiving updates from her sensor operators. Lieutenant Commander Minho approached her with a worried expression. Admiral, we're detecting massive energy signatures approaching our position, he reported. At least 200 vessels of unknown design. They'll be here within 6 hours. Admiral Borum studied the readings on her command screen. The approaching fleet was enormous, much larger than anything the humans had ever seen. It looks like our rescue mission has attracted some attention, she said calmly. All ships maintain defensive positions around the alien vessel. Do not engage unless fired upon. She activated the ship-wide communication system. This is Admiral Borum to all crew. We have a large unknown fleet approaching. We'll continue our rescue mission and protect our guests. Stay alert and ready. Down in the medical bay, Dr. So-Young was still talking with Captain Velix about the differences between their two species. She was fascinated by how peaceful the Zephyrian civilization was, while Captain Velix was amazed by humanity's ability to survive in such a dangerous universe. Neither of them knew that they're friendly. Conversation was being interpreted as something much more sinister by the approaching Galactic Council fleet. The stage was set for a massive confrontation that nobody wanted, but everyone was preparing for. The space around the human fleet suddenly filled with brilliant flashes of light as 200 alien ships materialized out of nowhere. It was like watching stars being born. One moment there was empty darkness, and the next moment the entire area was crowded with vessels of every shape and size imaginable. The alien fleet was unlike anything humans had ever seen. There were long, sleek ships that looked like giant fish swimming through space. Others were perfect spheres covered in glowing patterns. Some looked like floating cities, massive and complex, while others were small and dart-like. Despite their different appearances, they all moved together in perfect coordination as the ships spread out across the system. They created a shimmering energy barrier that surrounded the human fleet completely. The barrier looked like a soap bubble made of starlight, beautiful but clearly designed to trap anything inside it. Council Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, a massive vessel shaped like a crystal spear. His species had evolved from ocean creatures, and his blue-scaled skin glistened under the ship's lights, activated the communication system, and sent a message to the human fleet. Unknown Deathworld species. His voice boomed across space. You have violated galactic law by entering our territory with weapons of mass destruction. You will power down your weapons immediately and submit to galactic authority. The bridge of the Retribution, Admiral Borum listened to the alien transmission with growing anger. Her face, already hardened by years of military service, became even more stern. She turned to her crew with fire in her eyes. They're surrounding us and demanding we surrender our weapons, she said, her voice tight with controlled rage. That's an act of war. No one tells the human fleet to surrender. The human ships immediately shifted into their battle formation. It was a maneuver they had practiced thousands of times each. Ship moved to a specific position that would allow them to protect each other while maximizing their firepower. The massive weapon systems began powering up, creating a low humming sound that vibrated through the ships. Marine. Commander Dalsu received his orders and began preparing his troops for possible boarding actions. In the armory, soldiers checked their weapons and put on their combat armor. Everyone knew that if this turned into a fight, it would be brutal. Engineer Eugen worked frantically at her station, boosting the power to the ship's shields and weapon systems. Shield strength at maximum, she reported. All weapon systems are online and ready to fire. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Both fleets were now in full combat readiness, their weapons pointed at each other across the void of space down in the research vessel. Dr. Soyoung and Captain Velix watched the two fleets prepare for battle with growing horror. The small alien captain was shaking so badly he could barely stand. "This is complete madness," Velix whispered, his forearms trembling. "Both sides think they're defending themselves from threats that don't even exist. Where people think we're trying to conquer them, and my people think you're trying to conquer us." Dr. Soyoung realized that they were about to witness the most devastating battle in galactic history, all because of a simple misunderstanding. "We have to stop this," she said, her fingers flying over the communication console. "If these fleets start fighting, it'll be a massacre on both sides." The translation systems were still having trouble with the different languages, but Dr. Soyoung began broadcasting on every frequency she could find. "This is Dr. Soyoung of the human fleet." She transmitted desperately, "We came here in peace. We are not conquerors. We are rescuers." The fate of two civilizations hung in the balance. The breakthrough that saved two civilizations from war came from the most unlikely place. A small communication room where two language experts were working desperately to understand each other. Communications. Officer Hai-Jin had been working for 18 hours straight, her eyes red from staring at computer screens filled with alien symbols. Across from her sat Thane, the Zephyrian linguist, his crystalline fingers moving quickly across his own translation device. They had been trying to bridge the gap between their languages, knowing that lives depended on their success. "Try this," Frazee Shin said, typing new commands into her system. The humans came to help, not to hurt. Thane's translation device suddenly made a clear, musical sound. For the first time, the message came through perfectly in both languages. Eyes widened with excitement as he realized they had finally broken through the communication barrier. "It works," he exclaimed, his voice carrying through the ship's communication system. "I can understand them clearly now." The first message that went out between the two fleets was simple, but powerful. "We mean no harm." Those 4 words transmitted clearly in both languages began to change everything. Council Admiral Vexstar received the message on his flagship bridge. He looked at his communication officers with surprise. "They're saying they don't want to fight," he announced to his crew. "Open a direct channel to their fleet commander." Within minutes, Admiral Borum found herself speaking directly with the alien fleet commander. It was the first real conversation between humans and the Galactic Council, and both leaders were nervous but determined to avoid bloodshed. "Admiral Borum," Vexstar said, his voice now calm and curious rather than threatening. "Help me understand something. You brought 12 massive warships to rescue one small research vessel. Why did you need so much firepower for a simple rescue?" Borum was quiet for a moment, thinking about how to explain human thinking to an alien mind. "It's standard protocol for us," she finally said. "We didn't know what we'd find out here. There could have been pirates, hostile aliens, or dangerous space phenomena. Better to be prepared for anything than to lose people because we didn't bring enough protection." The alien admiral was stunned. "You always assume the worst-case scenario?" "Have to," Borum replied. "It's how we've survived as a species. Hope for the best, but prepare for the worst." Dr. Soyoung was invited to give a cultural briefing to both fleets over the communication system. Her explanation opened everyone's eyes to the truth behind the misunderstanding. Humans evolved on a world that was constantly trying to kill us. She explained, "We had to develop survival instincts that made us approach every situation as potentially dangerous. When we go into space, we bring those same instincts with us." She paused, looking at the faces of both human and alien crew members. On her screen, the galactic species evolved in relatively peaceful environments. "You've never had to worry about predators, natural disasters, or constant threats. So when you see our level of preparation, it looks like aggression to you, Lieutenant Commander. Min Ho, listening from the bridge, spoke up with a comment that perfectly summed up the human perspective. We're not trying to conquer anyone. We just really want to make sure everyone gets home safely. The silence that followed was filled with understanding. The Galactic Council representatives began to realize that humanity's overwhelming force wasn't a sign of aggression. It was their version of a safety net. These dangerous-looking weapons and massive fleets were actually how humans showed they cared about protecting others. The two fleets began to power down their weapons, and the first steps toward lasting peace were taken. 3 months had passed since the rescue mission that almost started the biggest war in galactic history. Now, everything had changed for the better. The small research ship that had been dying in space was now gleaming with new upgrades. Its crew had become bridges between two very different civilizations. Captain Vilix stood on the bridge of a brand new ship called the Harmony. This wasn't just a human vessel or an alien vessel. It was something completely new. The ship had been designed by both species working together, combining human strength with alien efficiency. It was a symbol of what could be accomplished when different civilizations cooperated instead of fighting. The bridge was a fascinating mix of technologies. Human control panels sat next to delicate Zephyrian communication systems. The walls displayed star charts from both civilizations, showing areas of space that neither species had explored alone. Most importantly, the crew was mixed humans and aliens working side by side, each bringing their unique skills to the team. Dr. Sa Young had become something she never expected. As the first human ambassador to the Galactic Council, she spent her time traveling between different alien worlds, helping them understand human culture and teaching humans about galactic civilization. Her work was preventing the kind of misunderstandings that had almost led to war. The progress we've made is remarkable, she said during a briefing to the joint crew. Both sides have learned to see past their first impressions and understand each other's motivations. Admiral Borom, who had once prepared for battle against the alien fleet, now worked with Council Admiral Vextar to establish new protocols for future encounters. They'd become unlikely friends, bonding over their shared responsibility to protect their people. The humans have agreed to moderate their response protocols when dealing with galactic species. Borom announced to the crew, "We're learning to scale down our safety measures so we don't accidentally frighten peaceful civilizations." She smiled as she continued. And the Council has established new guidelines for contact with what they call high-stress evolution species. They now understand that some civilizations might seem aggressive when they're actually just being careful. Down in the engineering section, the cooperation between species was even more visible. Engineer Eugen worked alongside Zephyrian technicians, therefore delicate hands moving in perfect coordination with her two stronger ones. They were sharing knowledge that benefited both civilizations. "Your efficiency techniques are incredible," Eugen said to her alien colleague. "You can accomplish in one step what takes us 3. Your durability innovations are amazing." The Zephyrian replied, "Our ships can now withstand impacts that would have destroyed them before." The technology exchange was creating advances that neither species could have achieved alone. Human ships were becoming more efficient, while alien vessels were becoming more robust. It was a perfect example of how diversity made everyone stronger. Captain Felix often walked through the corridors of the Harmony, marveling at how different his life had become. His emergency distress call had brought him face to face with the most dangerous species in the galaxy, and they had turned out to be exactly the allies the galaxy needed. "The irony is incredible," he said to Dr. So Young as they prepared for their next mission. "I was terrified when I first saw your war fleet, but now I can't imagine the galaxy without human protection." As the Harmony prepared to depart for its next diplomatic mission, both species looked forward to a future of cooperation and exploration. The Deathworlders had indeed sent a war fleet in response to that distress call. But through understanding and patience, it had become a fleet of peace. The universe was about to become a much more interesting place.